Hi, I'm Heather, a certified personal trainer, yoga instructor, and have my BSN in exercise science and behavioral coaching from Arizona State University. I currently live in Oregon with my 3 kids, who I will reference often.
And I'm Britt, a former Division I collegiate athlete turned recreational triathlete and fitness instructor. I have a degree in exercise biology from UC Davis, and I currently live in Belgium with my husband and 4 kids.
Together, we're best friends wanting to bring the world of health and fitness back to a more grounded and balanced place that's accessible to everyone.
Each episode, we're going to talk about ways to live out a well-rounded and healthy life that makes sense in today's modern, busy world. We'll cover topics related to exercise, nutrition, mindset, mental health, competition, and so much more.
So sit back, sign up, and let's get ready to
Race to wellness. Cool. How is your training plan going? Your training?
Good. I realized, so I made the 8-week plan for me to do 4 days of workouts per week. And then I realized I'm also doing CrossFit and I'm teaching yoga twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been interesting. Yeah. It's funny because I do own a scale. And so I check my weight occasionally. I was like, even though I was like, throw it out. Yes, I did throw out a scale at one point. And then I don't remember what made me get one again. Oh no, I know what it was. I had to get one because of the surrogacy. They had to have me under a certain BMI. And so I bought one. And so it sits in my bathroom or whatever. But anyway, so like the number on the scale, I've noticed a trend of it like fluctuates up and down about 3 pounds.
Yeah.
But I can always tell like the top number is slowly coming down a little bit at a time. Like my body, I physically can see that it's changed, but the weight is not like, I'm like, it's not heavy. It's super funny. I was talking to my friend Morgan this week and she said, she was talking about her weight loss journey a little bit. And she said, I used to be 200 pounds. And I like, but the way that she said it, like in her mind, it very clearly was like, this was a lot of weight to her. And I wanted to be like, girl, I'm 210 right now. Like,
Get it.
Yep. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We were talking about it earlier and I'm like, we're talking about today, finishing a program and what kind of comes next after that. And both of us realized that like, because we're in the fitness industry and how we live our lives, like we're kind of always in a perpetual state of programming and there's never really an end point, which is something that I think is actually really a helpful mindset for people to get to, is like understanding that like choosing to exercise or to work with a personal trainer, that kind of stuff, it's not just like a one and done situation. It's a lifestyle. Like you're really choosing to incorporate this in your life. And then the growth mindset around it of always being like analyzing your performance and how you're doing, how you felt on a day when you ate a certain way, that kind of stuff. Like I feel like that's something that's like constant and ongoing for me. And so I never really feel like I finish a program. I just continue programming forever and ever.
I feel like that's how a lot of people are. Like if you go to fitness classes, let's say at a gym, they're not doing them based on like an 8-week plan. They're just providing you a cardio class or a weightlifting class at 5 p.m. every Wednesday or whenever it is. And so they're not going to make that class, if it's a class open to the gym, they're not going to make that class like you have to have come for the past 3 weeks to be able to do this one.
Yeah, true. Yeah. I will say that there are like promotional things that do happen at gyms and with their classes and that kind of stuff. And so just being aware that like, if you choose to join like a small group training that's 6 weeks or something like that, it's meant to be an introduction to fitness sort of experience for you. So that you get to know the equipment and the layout of the gym and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of builds your confidence so that then you will continue on to do fitness stuff for your life.
Yeah. Well, they also sometimes at gyms will do like structured training plans where you sign up as part of this group and you would go however many times it's offered, maybe twice a week. And for 6 weeks or 12 weeks or however long it is, like this is your training plan that you go along with everybody else. So sometimes you will have that at the gym. It's just not the majority of stuff that happens.
So kind of the way that I'm thinking that we're going to approach this in talking about finishing a program is that idea of like mindset around what you just did for a period of time and then what you're going to do moving forward. Does that sound like what you had in mind too?
Yeah.
Cool. I think for me, like when I think about a program or finishing a program, I think about whether I would consider it successful or not successful. And I think that that's, I'm like, I think about when I, not necessarily like as a whole, but I like to like break it down and be like, okay, in that training plan, like what did I learn about myself, about training, about skills, any of that kind of stuff? What can I take forward into my next like section of training? And then where would I say that I failed? Because one of the things that I like heard about from an entrepreneur podcast, I think actually, was that the most successful people fail as many times as possible, as quickly as possible, so that they can learn. And so that's something that like, I don't see failures in my training as a bad thing. I see like an opportunity for growth or for me to learn something from it and to apply that moving forward.
Definitely. We had that a lot at my old job where we called them sprints. And it was like every 3 weeks they'd release like a new element patch to our programs that we would work in. And they did it purposefully so that they could get as many people touching it as possible so that they could find what was wrong with it quickly, as opposed to spending 6 months trying to develop it. And then you give it to the people using it and they find all these problems because you didn't know how they use it. So you definitely want that quick feedback of knowing this isn't going to work for you. How do you fix that? How do you get around that? How do you make it better?
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, because I don't want to be doing like the same exercise for 6 months and be doing it wrong, like doing the wrong form. And then suddenly I have an injury and I'm like, what the heck? And then somebody's like, oh yeah, your form was bad here. That's why you had that injury. And I'm like, oh my God, I could have corrected this day one. And it would have been so much better. Yeah. Which I think also goes back to us talking about like we never really feel like we're finishing a program, because personally I don't like get to a stopping point and go like, okay, what over the last 6 weeks worked well. It's like an ongoing constant conversation that I'm having with myself about why was I successful today versus yesterday when I wasn't successful, or what did I do today that was different or improved, or that kind of stuff.
I will say though that my mindset currently is very different than it used to be because of the fact that I used to race and do these events where so you would be working towards a specific deadline, and then that deadline comes and you do your race or you do your event, and then you either have another one on the calendar or you don't. So sometimes you do finish a training block and you're done for a little bit, or sometimes you just keep rolling through.
So if you had, like when you had events like that and that kind of stuff, like what did that look like for you when you stopped, when you did the race and then suddenly you're done? Like, would you take a break? Would you continue on? Would you immediately jump into a new program? Like, what did that look like?
It would depend on like when that event was. So like if it's an early race, like sometime in April, May, I probably have another race in the schedule at some point. Maybe July, August, like there's something else going on. So I would take a couple of days and then hop right back into training. Whereas if maybe you're finishing up your season, sometime September, October, even a late race, November type thing, you're probably going to take a break from the traditional training you had been doing. And that doesn't necessarily mean you stop fitnessing. Like, that is my 5K and now I'm not running anymore for the end of the year. Like it just means that you're maybe not doing structured training. Like you don't have a structured workout. So you just go out and you run for 30 minutes, as opposed to you need to hit these interval times and this heart rate zone, and you need to be doing this pacing. Like you just kind of go at a nice, like trying to maintain your fitness level.
Got it.
if that makes sense.
Okay. And there's definitely value in that of like
Oh,
just
yeah.
going out for a run, like just to go for a run and not having any of that
Mhm.
extra stuff.
Yeah, for both your mental health and your physical health.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that with weight training too. Like there's not,
Mhm.
I'm always kind of going for PRs. And then at the same time,
Yeah.
like not like so serious about it that every rep at the gym has to be a PR one or working hard. I'm like, sometimes I just
Mhm.
go to the gym because it just feels good. Like,
Yeah.
and that's okay. Yeah.
Well, like with weightlifting, you can't make every rep kind of chasing a PR. Like your body just won't let you do that.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that I'm like, most of the time it's not chasing a PR. Like in the back
Yeah.
of my mind, I'm thinking like, this is building to me being able to do a PR, but I'm
Mhm.
not like every lift,
Yeah.
just maxing out at the gym, which actually cracks me up about like videos that I see on social media and that kind of stuff, because like
Mhm.
influencer posts like all their
Yeah, their whole
PRs or
workouts
whatever.
and
And I'm
everything.
like, yeah, it's always a PR. And I'm like, or you could do 5 pounds and that's fine. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not a big deal. That's
Well,
normal.
like if you are training though to be like every single rep is going to be a PR chaser, or like every single day I'm going to go for a PR, you're either not training hard enough because you're
Mm-hmm.
able to
To
continually
always,
increase your weight. So you probably should have started here as opposed to being down here and be like, oh yeah, every day I add on 1 pound. No, you should have started
mm-hmm.
50 pounds heavier. You can squat higher.
Yes, yes.
Or you are setting yourself up for injury because eventually it's going to catch up with you and you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to continue to increase at that rate, and
Yeah,
something's going to give.
yeah, I agree.
When you were talking about like what can I learn from this and what can I take away from it, I also think
Mm-hmm.
about like what progressed me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
was there a part of this program that I did that helped me grow? And
Mm-hmm.
then maybe I can take that bit out and use it
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else. And if I'm not doing another program, maybe I can use that part that like it was helping me grow to the person I am now, or gain
Mm-hmm.
extra strength, and I can reuse that bit. And then you think about the bits that they weren't so successful and I failed at. Maybe you just get rid of those and you don't do those next time.
Right? Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting. Like they say that some of the most successful people are like marathon runners. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's because of that like mental toughness that you build throughout a program and throughout
Yeah.
training, which you should check out our other episode, guys. We talk about building mental toughness. What up there? But yeah, but this idea of like, it doesn't always have to be great. I think that's where
Yeah.
I kind of get caught up sometimes, is like this idea of like, of everything that I do has to be great or be pushing me toward a goal or toward a
Mm-hmm.
success, and actually like being able to learn from the parts that are not great or that were hard, like that were just hard and
Yeah.
sucked and I still did it anyway. Like that's the part that I learned the most from.
Yeah. My husband asks me like all the time when I come back from my workout, like, how's your workout? How was your run? And most of the time I'm like, it was all right. And
Mm-hmm.
like, we have between us now this like nice little saying, I guess, or just mantra of
Mm-hmm.
not every workout is going to be amazing, because if every workout was amazing, no workouts would be amazing. They'd all just be
Yeah.
average. And so
Yeah.
most of your workouts are going to just kind of be average. I mean, you'll get stuff out of them in the point like, yes, that made me feel better and
Mm-hmm.
I got to do this stuff, but in the sense of like the workout itself, it's just going to
Mm-hmm.
be an average workout for you. It's not going to be a highlight of the day every single time.
Can you imagine if every time you came home from the gym, you had to
My
be like,
God.
it was amazing?
Best
Not
day.
why. Right. Best day ever. I'm like, because let's be honest, like working out kind of sucks. Like in the middle of it,
Sometimes.
yeah, I'm like, sometimes it's just like, God, this is shit. Like I'm tired. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
fuel my body well enough. I didn't eat enough, or I didn't drink enough water the day before, whatever those are like. And then you just feel like shit in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's okay to like, even sometimes in the middle of those, I'll be like, you know what? Today is not the day. and like I leave the gym and I go home and I do something else. Like,
Mhm.
but learn from that. Like learn from that experience of like, okay, why did today suck at the gym? Because I didn't eat well, or because I didn't drink enough water, because I didn't sleep enough. Like I
Yeah.
was stressed, whatever those things are, and learn from them, even if you don't make it through the workout.
Yeah.
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 I do love getting to a point though, like if I do like an 8-week program, like I'm in the middle of one right now, I love being able to record or to understand the differences in my body between the beginning and the end. It's like right
Yeah.
now I'm about to do week 5, and I was standing in my kitchen this morning, and even like things like doing like hip rotations and that kind of stuff, like out to the side, I can feel the difference in my body, that my hips are
Mhm.
more open, that I'm more just like agile, more mobile. And even if I'm
Yeah.
not seeing weight loss, if I'm not seeing huge strength gains, anything like that, like the mobility portion for me, just being able to move better and feel better in my body is enough to keep me going.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're doing a program that is programmed out like your program, you might
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily see a lot of big improvements in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of your program.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you feel like from day one to right now, you may have
Mm-hmm.
made some big leaps and bounds, but you've probably been in programs where you're like, I feel like if I took a snapshot of this, I look exactly the same as day one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you
Yeah.
look at other metrics like, oh, I'm able to like reach for my toes and touch the
Mm-hmm.
ground now, as opposed to before where I was on my shins. Or
Yeah.
maybe it's like, I'm now able to sleep at night as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to having just completely restless sleep all day. These
Yeah.
weird metrics that pop up in the middle of your program when you feel like nothing's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me really glad when I like write them down or track them in some way, like from the beginning to the end, or even thinking about like tracking my sleep. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about before, that we keep track of our sleep in some way. I have talked about that I am really incredibly sensitive to caffeine, like so
Mm-hmm.
sensitive. And it's gotten to the point now where I'm sensitive to decaffeinated tea and decaffeinated coffee. And up to this point, I've been able to drink like Coca-Cola. And so the other day I was talking about Coca-Cola and I was like, okay, I'm going to let myself have one because it's not something, I don't drink Coke all the time. And so I was like, well, I'll have one. And then, so I went and had one, and then I went to bed and I had the worst night's sleep I've had in such a long time. And I was like, okay, not only does that tell me that my caffeine sensitivity is really more than I was expecting, I'm like, but it just tells me like something else about myself, which I can
Mm-hmm.
then apply to other places, because learning from that, like that talking about something that I really like eating is really like that it's in my brain that I want that right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so then how do I overcome something where I'm like, I really don't want to eat that. It's not healthy in my diet. It's not something I should put in my body or I want to put in my body. So how do I overcome those like urges and cravings and that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Gotta change that stimuli.
Yep. Change it. I'm like, now I know. Now it's in my head as a bad one. I'm like, nope, no, you feel like shit. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. It's
Don't
not
put that
worth
in
it.
here. Right? It's not worth it.
Yeah.
I think my favorite though about a program like finishing it is the physical changes. Like when you have done
Yeah.
something, especially, I mean, if that's something that you're considering, like for me, I don't necessarily want to be thin or dainty or any of that kind of stuff. That's not physically possible in my body, I don't think. But I want to look strong. And
Mm-hmm.
so seeing the changes in my body where I look stronger, I like that a lot. Like right now, I've been
Yeah.
noticing like my arms, the definition in my bicep muscles it's coming back. My shoulder caps and all that kind of stuff is coming back. And I'm like, that for me is so motivating, where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I look like a boss. Like I look like I could kick your ass. Hell yeah.
And I can.
And I can. I literally have the skills. What?
But also, you might not have necessarily physical changes when you complete a program.
Yeah.
And that might be okay. It could be that you don't have physical changes because you didn't push yourself hard enough in it, or you weren't consistent through your program. So maybe you didn't complete it
Mhm.
as it was programmed for you. So maybe it was 4 days a week and you only did 1 day a week type of thing.
Yeah.
Or it could be that you weren't lifting heavy enough or running enough or whatever your program is. But it also could just be that that wasn't what you needed out of that program. and that wasn't the
Yes.
goal of the program.
Yeah, I'm like, that might not have been your goal. Like, there's plenty of people who do fitness just for like life, like just your functional movements, so that you can walk up and down the stairs at your work every day, so you can bend down and pick up your kids, or lift the groceries out of the car and take them inside, that kind of stuff. Like, that's just being able to do those functional movements. Maybe that's why you do a program, or maybe that's why you go to a series of classes, or small group training, whatever it might be. And that's okay. There's no requirement that you're always pushing for a PR and that you're always trying to be the most badass, strongest person ever. Like, that's not required in a program.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Not at all.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that having that understanding of like what you set out to do at the beginning of a program and then what you did do at the end of the program, I think that's super important to talk about. Like, just that understanding of when you're setting goals and you're like, okay, I don't want to PR every time I go to the gym. What I want to do is to be able to stand up off of the couch without having to put my hand on the armrest, or I want to be able to get out of bed in the morning without having a stiff back, that kind of stuff.
Or
And then
climb
at the
all the
end of
stairs
that
in your
program-
house.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, and if you get to the end of your program and you are still able to function and do those things, or those are improved for you, I think that that's a massive success and something to be celebrated.
Yeah.
I think it's also like, going back to the body composition part of it. It's also interesting for me, like when I set out doing a program and I'm like, okay, so for me, this is just a random aside, I'm obsessed with having a perky butt. Like, that is a thing for me. And so, like, going into a program, if I set out with that expectation, like, did other parts of my body change through that program that I wasn't expecting? Like, for me, it's almost always, I get thinner in my face as I continue on a workout program. And that's not something that I expect. And so then looking at myself in the mirror every day, I'm like, my face looks different than it did 4 weeks ago or whatever. And so, like, understanding that my expectations were different, and that's okay. It's okay for your expectations and where you are at the end to not necessarily match up.
Yeah. I think we talked about it when we were talking about, you can't spot train something. So
yeah,
your goal might be that you want to lose the flab under your arms or something, but you can't spot train that away with your program, no matter what you're trying to do with it. And so you might set a goal at the beginning of your program to lose that excess fat in that area. And you might not achieve that goal because you lost excess fat in your legs.
Yeah, for sure. And that's okay. Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay. I was like, the hard one for people I've noticed is like, they want to lose fat on their belly. Like, even me, I feel like that. I have extra like skin and tummy flab from having babies and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, that's where I'm like, I want to lose that. But abs are made in the kitchen, bro. I'm like, they're not made at the gym. So, you know, we do what we can.
Yeah. I actually saw some really interesting stuff about belly fat. So women in general, before you go through menopause, we don't store our fat in our belly. We store it out in our extremities, and our butt, in our arms and our legs, and men store it in their core. And after women go through menopause, they start storing their fat in their core because of their drop in estrogen.
Okay.
And so your body hormone levels change. And so now your body is more like a man's hormone levels, and it starts storing your fat in your midsection as opposed to out in your extremities, which is why when women go through menopause, they tend to start to put on a little more weight in their midsection.
Yeah. Interesting. It's also harder to lose weight. Like, as you get aging, it gets harder. So I'm like, work on the food right now.
Yeah, build the healthy habits before you get older.
Yep, true story. Yeah, I think we should talk about like mental changes that happen as part of your training plan too, because like part of what I do is in behavioral coaching is building on somebody's confidence from other points in their life where they've been successful. And so if you've gotten to the end of a training plan, whether it was perfectly executed or not, you have succeeded at something, and you should feel good about that. And you should apply those skills that you learned from that training plan to other parts of your life so that you can be successful all around.
or at least you've been successful in completing the training plan, and you can celebrate that you achieved that, whether or not it ended up being what you wanted out of it in the end. You did achieve it. So small victory for you to celebrate the accomplishment of finishing it.
And I don't want to like give a participation award. I'm like, that's not what this is about, where you're like, I set out to do an 8-week training plan and I arrived for the first day and that was it. That's not what we're talking about. But we're talking about like, if you showed up for most of the workouts in some way, or you did the mental work that you were trying to do, like, then you have been successful.
Yeah. We kind of started talking about the what to expect your results to be already.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I'm like, I feel like expectations around a training plan are really important. Like if you have an unreasonable expectation from the outset of a training plan, you're like, I'm going to lose 100 pounds this month. Like, that's not going to happen, first of all. But like having that expectation, then when you get to the end of it and you've failed at your goal, it was nothing to do with you, but you might blame yourself for the result. And so having that expectation be reasonable, right? Like we talked about SMART goals in an earlier episode about making it realistic. So having an understanding of what your body is able to do, what you're able to accomplish during that training plan. And then if you're not successful at the end of it, then you can learn something. Or if you are successful, then you know that you did the work and that it was on you. And so you get to celebrate that.
Yeah. I think also like your goal might not be losing weight related. It might be like maybe you want to run a faster marathon time or a faster mile time, or just complete running the mile, because some people can't run a full mile. Your goal, you could put in the work for it and still not achieve that goal, essentially, if this makes sense to you. So like maybe you're going to run that race on a specific day. There could be extenuating factors that prevent you from achieving that goal. Maybe you get injured. And so, or maybe you fall. Let's say you fall during the race. That's a nice one to kind of think about this as. You fall during your race towards the beginning, and you get up and you realize that you kind of hurt yourself during it. And so you have to stop running your race because you don't want to continue and injure yourself even more. That doesn't necessarily mean you failed your training plan, because you didn't get to achieve your goal at the end of this.
Agreed. That's hard. I'm like, I think that also setting yourself up for that, like for understanding those things can happen. I think that helps you like in the moment if they do. Like we've talked about about fear, and about a lot of times what holds us back from doing something is fear. And fear for me is just a lack of understanding. And so if I think through all those possibilities of like, okay, what do I do if I do have an injury? How am I going to adjust my training plan? If I do fall during a race, am I going to get back up and run it? Like, what is that going to look like? Am I going to pick up my training plan after that and try and run a different race? Like thinking about all those things. And then when you come upon them, like, then you're ready, you're prepared, you've mentally like fortified yourself and given yourself the tools to overcome the obstacle.
Yeah. I know that another one that I had that personally happened to me was I was going to run a triathlon, and my dad flew in and he was going to come watch the race. And I think it was the very first triathlon he'd seen me run, and probably the first like sporting event he'd seen me run in person since college. So like a big deal for me. And like, I had to go pick him up at the airport that same day or the day before. It might've been the day before. It was the day before.
Okay.
And his flight got delayed. And so he came in later than normal. And so my sleep pattern got all thrown off, and I was now running this race on like 3 hours of sleep.
Oh God.
Not super fun. And then like partway through the swim, I got to one of the buoys and I got swum over by somebody, which not nice swim etiquette, by the way, but it happens.
No.
So you have to be prepared for it. And like all these little factors started to like pile up against me. And I could have said to myself, my like I could have gone down a path of just like destruction in my brain and just been
Mhm.
just utterly sad and devastated by it. But I had to choose the path of my dad is here. He's watching me
Mhm.
compete. He knows that I'm not a professional triathlete. He's not expecting me to win this race. He's just there to cheer me
Mm-mm.
on. So
Yeah.
just do your best with what you have now. You're not going to set a personal record because you had other
Yeah.
stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Yeah.
that brings up an important point about expectations, not only that we have for ourselves, but like that we think that other people have for us
Mhm.
and the way that we talk to ourselves. Cause like we beat ourselves up if if we're not perfect, if we don't make a record
Yeah.
time or whatever that is, or we don't set a PR. And we think that other people are holding us to that same high standard, and they're
Mhm.
not. Like
Yeah.
the people who are around you supporting you are just excited for you. Like, and they
Mhm.
should be. And I'm going to clarify that if they're not excited for you, those are not the type of people you want in your life. Like, move along. But
Move
thinking
along.
about like, move along, but we don't want those expectations. Like, and not that we
Yeah.
don't want those expectations. People don't have those expectations for us. They're not holding us to
Mhm.
that standard. We're holding us to ourselves to that standard, or trying to, and then
Mhm.
projecting our expectations onto them. And
Yeah.
it's a whole mess of things. And so managing those expectations and understanding like your friends and your family are just going to be there to support you and love you no matter
Mhm.
what you do, and whether you're the most successful or a
Yeah.
little successful,
Mhm.
or if you fail, and that's okay. Always
Yeah.
fail up.
Always fail up. Yeah, I had another fun example that is not well, sort of sports related, but not. So when I was
Mm-hmm.
doing musical theater,
Mm-hmm.
they usually came and recorded one night of the show so that you'd have like the recording of it. And
Mm-hmm.
in this show, there was a jump rope routine, like
Oh my
with
God, I
tricks of
remember
the jump
this.
rope. Yes, but not that one
Yeah.
that you saw. That was my
Oh,
redeeming
okay.
one. I
Okay.
nailed that
Okay.
one. That was great. No,
It was
I did that show.
amazing.
It was, thank you. No, just
It was
kidding.
so good. I literally watching you was like, how is she jump roping and singing? Like, what in the actual
What is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did this one right out of college initially.
Mhm.
And so I was one of just the background jump roper type people. And I messed up on that night that we were filming it. And my parents came to that night that we were filming it. And
Mhm.
I messed it up, and that like I'm someone who shows their emotions a lot, like on my face. Like if I'm about to
Mhm.
cry, you can kind of see that I'm about to cry. And I was about to cry because I was like, I messed it up on filming night. I have been perfect all 12 other nights that we've done this. And on the one night that we film, I messed it up. And
Yeah.
I left the stage and I got very angry and did some very immature things of just like being a brat about it. And it was because I was projecting that my parents who were there
Mhm.
were going to think that I did not know how to do the routine or that I sucked or whatever. And after the show, my mom was like, you know that we don't care that you know how to jump rope. Like we've seen you jump rope a million times in your lifetime. Like we know you can do
Yeah.
a jump rope.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
but you were
I
so
know.
hard on yourself.
I
Yeah.
was for no reason, literally no
Mhm.
reason. Like no, I am the only one who remembered that I messed up, with the exception of the fact that I got very frustrated and like I threw my jump rope across the room when I got off stage, and like I'm
Mhm.
sure people remembered my outbursts, but they did
Mhm.
not remember why.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you hadn't had the outburst, like, would they have
They would have
even?
not known.
Mm-mm.
Exactly.
Nope. Yeah.
So our expectations of ourselves can be detrimental sometimes.
Yep. I put in here that I wanted to talk about plateaus briefly, like,
Okay.
because I'm like, you can, like, I one of my aunts, she came to yoga this week and she said that she's
Mhm.
lost, I think she said 63 pounds or 67 pounds, I
Wow.
can't remember, but she's lost, yeah, a lot of weight recently. And she said that she's not losing weight. Like the last 3 weeks, she hasn't
Mhm.
lost any weight. And so she's feeling frustrated about it. And I think that's something that's super common, is that like you hit a
Mhm.
plateau and you're like, why am I not losing weight, or why am I not getting
Yeah.
stronger, that kind of stuff. And so it's super important to like look at those things, and especially if you're hitting a plateau where you've been losing weight consistently and then you're not, like reevaluating, because your body has changed. Your body that was 60 whatever pounds heavier to your body that is now has different needs. Those two things are very different. And so looking at your calorie intake, looking at the exercise that you're doing, and are you challenging yourself and changing it up and being okay with that? I think that's super important.
I think that probably happens to more people than they know. And they chalk it up to like them just not doing the work, as opposed to reevaluating what the work they're doing is now, and like what type of food they're eating now. Like, are you eating enough food to maintain you to do this work? Or are you eating too much food now because you're now a different person? And I feel like it probably happens more to people on like if they're doing like a program that they repeat, when they do multiple rounds of things, because they don't go back and reevaluate from the beginning like they would have at the very beginning when they started.
Yeah, for sure. I know that like for thinking about like my programming that I do for like bodybuilding and weightlifting, that kind of stuff. So I have like my mechanism that's true in all of them about like, if I can do 8 reps at a weight, then I can maintain that. If I can do 12 for all 4 sets or all however many sets, then it's time for me to increase the weight on that. And so that's built in so that there's like little variables that let me know whether I'm pushing myself hard enough or whether I should be pushing harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to realize on your own too. Like if you're not working out with somebody else or with a trainer, like it's sometimes hard to recognize that you're not pushing yourself hard enough.
Yeah, for sure. As a trainer, I see it all the time where people are just like kind of complacent in the work that they're doing. And like your muscles still get fatigued, whether you're working them super hard or not. And so because you're experiencing fatigue from the movement itself, you might be able to justify in your head and say like, oh, I did enough today. But did you really? Like, did you really push yourself? Did you? And I'm not saying max out everything every time, give it your whole energy, but I'm like, but you should be challenging yourself. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If your goal is to increase your strength or increase your endurance, you need to challenge yourself. You can't just go through and it can be fine to do all 12 of your reps at the same way every week consistently. Like it's not going to help you progress. Now, if your goal is just to show up and get the benefits of like movement out of it and range of motion or whatever, then that's great.
Yeah, then you're doing perfect. Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about expectations, about like what you're focused on and understanding that. Because is it related to stamina or endurance, or is it related to strength building? Is it related to mobility? Is it just being able to function? Is it whatever it is?
Maybe we move into finishing that plan and what happens at the end, and then what you do next. You get to the end of your plan, you've completed it successfully, but now like what do you do? Yeah. What do you do?
I think that's real. Yeah. I'm like thinking about like when I ran a half marathon, that was all I was training for, was just that half marathon. And I remember getting to the end of it and being like, cool, that's done. And then like,
now what do I do?
Now what do I do? Yeah, like at that point, I wasn't weightlifting yet, and I didn't have a reason to continue running. I had been doing team in training at that point. And so like, that was my motivation, was because my grandma had been going through chemotherapy. Yeah. And I had, and so I wanted to support the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society by raising funds for them. And then, but that was where all my mental energy was in doing the training plan and raising the funds so that, so for that. But then after that was done, I was like, now what? Like, which is exciting. Like you get to then decide what you want to do moving forward, but it can also be like super daunting of like, okay, I went from having this group of people that I was training with, or this specific regimen that was laid out for me super easy. Like, what do I do now?
Especially if like your fitness for that plan was like given to you, like you have a calendar for it, then you run your event and you don't have another event coming up and now you have nothing on the calendar, like not everyone knows how to program their own stuff. Like we've kind of been talking about it of you go to the gym and you do your routine or whatever, but not everybody knows how to make up their lifting for that day and their program. And so it can be daunting to not see anything on your schedule. And so now you don't know what to do fitness wise.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's where it can be helpful for people to work with a personal trainer or a coach in some way. Whether you're a seasoned athlete or not, like whether you're brand new or you've been doing this for a while, working with somebody else like can help you understand maybe where you have opportunities in your training. Like maybe you have been doing a move incorrectly, or maybe you could be pushing yourself harder and you weren't aware of it because it felt like you were doing work the whole time. Yeah. And so working with somebody else, even just a friend, I'm like, maybe it doesn't have to be a personal trainer or a group instructor or something like that, but just working with somebody else alongside can be super helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you also could just be stuck in like a routine that isn't necessarily benefiting you, where you just go and you're doing the same things over and over and over again. And so getting some sort of outside perspective might be helpful to get you into some new patterns and some new moves or some new equipment. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, I like to rag on social media influencers and their programs, if we're just being honest. I was like a little bit. Brittany and I had the conversation this week about like that we're trying to figure out our place in social media and that environment of like we see so much and I want to help people so much, both of us do. But it can be really hard that people are putting out misinformation and that kind of stuff on social media, and coming from a place of like encouraging people to seek out better information and to vet the influencers that they're following, that kind of stuff, and those training plans. I think that's super important. And for us, like finding a voice in that of like, how do we gently correct somebody? Like if they are putting out misinformation, how do we gently correct them so that people are getting good information without just being a hater or just being an internet troll or whatever. I'm like, I don't want to be that person, but I do want to correct the information that's out there. But for our listeners, it's super important for you, like when you're seeing posts online and that kind of stuff, I just want you to vet that person, make sure that they have some sort of certification and what they're talking about, and that they're not just putting out random information, because it could be incorrect.
Yeah.
And it could harm you in some way. Yeah.
Exactly. Or if they're trying to tell you like proper form on how to do something, or show you proper form on how to do something, and they're not doing it with proper form, can also be difficult.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to talk really briefly about, because that brings up a good point of like social media influencers. And a lot of these social media influencers aren't producing their own content. They're giving you somebody else's content. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my hat. It's a really cool hat. It's from a Beachbody program. And I do not personally think that the Beachbody programs are bad programs. I think that their stuff is great. If you are doing their moves and their programs with good form, you're going to see results, and like they have truly helped people. Where I don't like their company is the fact that things are far too expensive. Like all of their business model is essentially based off of, they want you to buy their nutritional stuff, which is far too overpriced for what it is. And previously to this year, their kind of whole model was calling these social influencers, their coaches, calling them coaches. And a lot of them don't have fitness backgrounds outside of doing these programs. And so, like Heather was saying, they'll put out misinformation, or they'll put out videos where they're doing improper form or whatever, or they'll give you advice when they're very much not qualified to give you advice. Yeah. So that's where I found fault in this company, essentially. But they do have a lot of programs on there that you can do that are pre-built. And so finding pre-built programs from these types of companies can be a great place for someone to start. Like
Yeah.
if you are feeling completely overwhelmed with where to start on something,
Mm-hmm.
finding a pre-built 8-week plan can be really good because they are designed by people in the fitness industry with certifications so that
Yeah,
we know that
that's
the moves
important.
are designed properly and the workouts are supposed to be good for you and safe as long as you are doing them with proper form.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think that another thing to be aware of, I guess, is like any type of media, whether social or even thinking about the news, that kind of stuff, like anything that you read online, there's generally an agenda behind that.
Yeah.
And so having an understanding of like, what is that company? What is that person's agenda? Are they genuinely trying to help people? Are they trying to make me better at fitness? Are they trying to make me
Yeah.
healthier in some way? Or are they trying to sell me a shake that's going to make them money?
One of my friends asked me once, they were looking into getting a bike to do like spin class on at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were
Yeah.
asking me about Peloton and
Mhm.
that sort of thing and what I thought of things because they knew I was a spin instructor and I use these bikes, not Peloton specifically, but I use bikes all the time and I ride my own bikes and everything. So they asked my opinion on things and they asked what I thought about the Peloton bike. And
Mhm.
if you know Peloton bikes, they are rather expensive. They
Mhm.
are probably the most expensive bike out there, and they come with a subscription plan that is also probably one of the more expensive ones out there
Mhm.
for what it is. But I wrote
Yeah.
back to her, I know that their household didn't at the time have the most amount of money. And so
Mhm.
this would have been something that might have been a stretch on their budget if they went for this. But I wrote back to her that if you are going to use it and it gets you
Mhm.
to be successful in your fitness habit, it's worth the
Mhm.
money.
It's worth it for sure.
But if you're not going to use it at all and it's going to just sit in the corner, it's not worth the money at all.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
That's something I stole from my mom once when I was younger because and it goes back to breakfast cereal. We kind of know about how I feel about breakfast cereal.
Love it.
But she would tell me that like she would buy me whatever breakfast cereal I wanted as long as it got me to eat food in the morning. Like as long
Mhm.
as I eat it, she'll buy it for me. But if I'm not going to
Yeah,
eat it, she's not going to buy it for me.
I agree. Yeah. I had the conversation with my mom this week about like buying things on Amazon.
Yeah.
she said I need to remove my credit card from Amazon so that I stop buying things because it's so easy to just go on,
Yeah.
put it in the cart and one buy or whatever. And so I told her that my rule for myself when I'm making purchases is like if I have to put it in the cart and it has to be in there for a week, and at the end of the week, if it's still something that I want or need, then I will buy it. But just limiting. Don't buy all the crap.
Except for festival sunglasses.
Truth. I was like, that's 100% happening. There's no
That was like
immediately
maybe
check.
a 2-minute purchase.
Yeah, I was like, I'm buying that. That's 100% something
Sent you the
I'm
link and
taking.
you're like, oh, they're only in a 3-pack. Wait, don't buy them. I already bought them.
I already bought them. I could probably have canceled, but I was like, no, I want 3 pairs of flashy sunglasses for a festival.
Exactly.
P.S. I'm going to Belgium in the festival, you guys. Woo!
We're
So
gonna rock
excited.
out.
Yeah.
So excited.
That's like my I was like, because I'm finishing my 8-week program in April, and then in June/July when I'm coming to see you, that's kind of the end of season 2 of our podcast, guys. What?
Woo!
It's
And this is
around that
almost the end
time.
of season 1. We're only a few
Isn't that
episodes
wild?
away.
So crazy. So crazy.
Crazy.
Oh.
Yeah. And you are about to go on vacation, get some much needed rest time.
Rest. I need sunshine. That's what I need. I'm like,
I need sunshine.
I need sunshine. It's been so rainy and snowy and gray and gross.
It's true. We had sunshine here yesterday and today, but
Mm-hmm.
today was even better, even though the wind was blowing so hard today. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I put on, it didn't look warm outside. The wind is blowing, like super blowing.
Yeah.
So I put on my jacket and I put on a hat, not this type of hat, but a like beanie hat. and I take the dog outside to go for a walk. And we cut the walk short. So I had to take him on a second one today, but we cut the walk short because I was dying because I put on too much clothes.
It was too hot. Oh my gosh.
I was so
Why don't you
warm.
just take him off. Well, yeah.
Well, then I
I
was
get
carrying a giant wintry type jacket. And so I was like, I'll just go home and I'll walk you later, which I did. But I was just like, oh my God, I'm so warm right now. Want to guess how warm it got today? Want to guess how warm it was for me to be like, I'm dying?
55.
No, a little warmer, but like 60 degrees.
That's awesome.
I was just like, what the heck?
What is happening? It's so hot.
Yeah, but it's because the sun was shining like directly as opposed to like being overcast and 60. Like you were standing in the sun.
I love it.
But yeah, so you're going on vacation soon to get some rest after you finish your program.
I am. So are you. You're going to Spain, girl. Are you stoked?
So excited.
What? Yeah.
I was trying to segue this though, and you ruined it.
Oh, sorry. We can go back.
Into our final part of when to know if you need rest. You're going on vacation.
Oh, yes. I'm going on vacation. I need a break.
Heather, quit ruining it.
Sorry.
Back to this whole when to know if you need rest.
Yep. I do, clearly.
Yeah, Heather needs a little bit in the sunshine. But you might get to the end of your program or training phase or whatever it is and feel really run down because you have just pushed really hard for 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, however long your training phase was. And you might then need some time off.
Yeah. Rest and recover. And that's okay. I think that it's super helpful to have a break of like even just a couple of days or a week or 2 weeks. Ideally, I like to take 2 weeks off, not from doing any sort of physical activity, like continuing to walk, maintain that kind of stuff, but like from heavy weightlifting, especially if you've been doing like a strength building program, taking some time off from that, because it really like puts you back in balance so that when you go back to the gym, then you're like, oh, I am stronger than I thought I was, or, oh, I can lift heavier. I do have more endurance than I started out with. Yeah. I'm like, I like that feeling.
Yeah. I saw a really good graphic online about like weight loss and how like people when they hit plateaus and things and then taking time off. If I can find it, I will put it in here for you to see. But it was basically like you come down a slope and then people hit a plateau and then like they take a week off or 2 weeks off or whatever and they gain some weight back. But then they like almost immediately lose it back off and they continue going back down. So they go past their plateau and keep going down. And then they hit a plateau and then they take some time off. They gain some weight because they've taken time off of their intense training. And then they go back down on their thing. And it was really interesting to see because it brought into perspective the fact that when they take that time off, they're letting their body recover. They're letting their muscles fully come back and repair themselves. They're letting their hormones maybe balance themselves out. They're not stressed out as often. Like, it's interesting.
It makes me think of like when we talked about like when our body gets sick and that's the only thing, whatever that illness is that's the only thing that our body is focusing on. And so if we're always in a state of weight loss or we're trying to be there, our body gets to a point where it's like, I'm under attack, I'm under attack, I'm under attack. And so then it focuses on maintaining you as a person and not on weight loss at all. Yeah. And so then backing off, giving it some time to heal, to recover, and then jumping back into it. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That's such a good thing.
So it was a really cool
like
graphic to see.
Yeah. Our bodies are not always meant to be in a state of weight loss. Like that's
they're not.
And so, recognizing that that's not the norm, taking a break from it and then jumping back in. Yeah. I love that.
Same with like, cause your goal might not be weight loss at all. So like maybe your goal is, again, to increase your cardiovascular endurance or to push for something like that. Your body isn't meant to be in that state of, we need to be pushing the entire time. So you do need those breaks and those moments of we need to take some active recovery at the end of this training phase or whatever you're doing, so that your body has a little bit of catch-up time to recover. And then you can go into maybe phase 2 of your training phase feeling more rested and able to push through, as opposed to getting to it already super tired. And now you're expected to push even harder. It won't work out as well for you in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Give your body the rest it needs. I think that we really should emphasize the point of like all of this that we've been talking about is really comes back to listening to your body, and then like understanding from the beginning of this, where we talked about like expectations around your training plan and listening to your, like taking moments in that training plan and saying like, I did well here, I didn't do well here. And like, but that requires you to be listening to your body throughout the process.
Yeah. And knowing how to listen, or not knowing how to listen, but like knowing what your body means when it's giving you these signals. Like it could be signaling you that it's tired and needs rest. And if you don't know that's what that signal means, you might ignore it and continue thinking everything is fine. So really kind of tapping in and getting to know how your body works and what your body feels like when it's really actually tired, and what it feels like when it's actually rested and refreshed will help you later on know how to read those signals when they come up.
Yeah. It makes me think of like when you're in a weightlifting program, right? And like you're trying to build strength. If your body is signaling for you, like I need rest, I need to recover, it may come across as weakness. Like if you, because you're not pushing that heavier weight. And so then you might try and push your body harder to lift the heavier weight, to do more reps, to do that kind of stuff so that you're building the strength. When in actuality, your body is like, no, bro, like I need to lay down. And so, just paying attention to how you're feeling, what your body is signaling it. And it doesn't always have to be like in the gym. It could be in other ways. Like it could be, man, I really just can't get out of this mental fog today. Or my relationships are suffering because I'm short, like I'm snippy with people. And why am I irritable? That kind of stuff, like paying attention to all those signals that your body's giving to you, and understanding like you're a whole ecosystem that's working together or trying to work together, and not compartmentalizing everything and being like, oh, I'm irritable in this area, but that doesn't have anything to do with my workout over here. When in actuality, it probably does. It has to do with energy consumption. It has to do with all sorts of things.
Yeah. What a nice way to segue us into what we're talking about next week.
Yeah, which is burnout.
Hey.
What's up?
What's up? So next week we're going to be talking about that lovely topic of burnout, which I don't think was a thing until about 2020. Like it was a thing, but we didn't talk about it as a society. We didn't know about it in like everyday life. So we're going to be talking a little bit about burnout, how to recognize it, what to do.
Yeah, I love it. Woohoo! Thanks for listening, you guys.
Yeah.
We love you.
We love you. You know what we didn't do this episode? Follow us on TikTok. Hard. Also, no, we did that. Follow us on TikTok. Here's Instagram. Here's our Facebook. And if you're old school cool, here's our Tumblr.
Or you could send us an email.
Ooh,
just a reminder.
Email. We have a Q&A coming up in 2 episodes. Get those questions in because you don't want to miss it.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today at Race to Wellness. We hope it was both fun and informative for you. Make sure to join us for our next episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. Also, we'd love to keep the conversation going, so feel free to ask us any questions or leave us a comment down below. You can also send us an email at racetowellness2023@gmail.com and click on the links in the description to follow us on our social media platforms.